the first time since April.
All right, everybody, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football live show. We got the holiday weekend coming up, Labor Day, so we're going to be off Monday and Tuesday, but Wednesday, we're going to have a marathon with 50 fantasy football experts. That marathon is Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you want details on that, go to my Twitter, at Jim Coventry NFL. Sirius XM, if you have the Fantasy Sports Channel, Sunday, 1 to 3 Eastern, myself and Alan Soslowski giving you last-minute advice for those great drafts you have going on. Got Chris Wassel in the house. At the end, he's going to be talking some gambling. He's going to chime in with me about some fantasy right now. Chris, tell everybody what's going on, and when we start, tell them where to find you, too.
As always, you can find me on the great thing known as Twitter, X, YZ, look, insert symbol even in honor of Prince. But Chris Wassel DFS is where to find me on Twitter. I'm always around. It seems like I don't ever sleep. Sometimes it shows, sometimes it doesn't. But we're always out for a good time, especially this approaching NFL season.
Yes. Chris and I are teammates at the gambling.com group. Been very excited to know Chris. Worked with him last year. Very exciting working on the show with him. Getting him to do that again this year. Very good times here. So we're going to talk some players that you could get in the 10th round or later in your fantasy drafts. It's crunch time. People kind of have a good feel for who they want in those first few rounds. But let's talk about a few players. We're starting with Nico Collins. Now, Nico Collins of the Texans, he had very similar numbers his first 2 years. Morning, Jed. So in the 2 years, basically it's 446 yards as a rookie on 60 targets. And then last year, 481 yards. So a few more yards on 66 targets. But he misses time. He missed 3 games as a rookie. He missed 7 last year. So actually with the missed time, he was on pace for a much better season. We don't know if this guy can stay healthy. Morning, Albert. But what we do know is C.J. Stroud is going to very likely be a big upgrade on Davis Mills. And we know he's a quarterback who can throw to the perimeter. And that's where Nico Collins wins. So there is a world where Nico Collins is the clear alpha receiver in this offense. Defenses play a lot of zone now. The outside alphas aren't always, if they're not the Jamar Chase of the world, they're not seeing extreme coverage. There's a world where Nico Collins can get you 800 plus yards this year. Chris, any words on Nico Collins?
What? 6'4", bigger hands than me, which is a low bar. Can get open outside, and that was the one thing we saw last year in limited time. And yes, you always when you see the first 2 years of any player, and it doesn't matter which sport, and you see injury concerns, there is always red flags. But sometimes a player just works through that. I mean, how many times have we seen that in football where it's like you see the first 2 years, you get a little panicked, and then all of a sudden year 3, the guy breaks out, and you're just like, oh, I missed that fantasy bus.
So, again, you understand the potential for injury, but Chris and I are saying talent's there. And the one other thing, Chris mentioned how he can get open 50-50 balls. He is exceptional. And in the end zone, he is a big end zone winner. Now, hopefully Houston gets in the red zone, but I think they'll get down there more than they had in the past, and he definitely can win there. So if you're looking for an upside play around the 10th or so round, I do want you to consider Nico Collins. Speaking of injuries, Chris, we're going to go to Rashod Bateman next. Now, Bateman is getting drafted almost 2 full rounds after Zay Flowers. Now, Bateman, look, same thing. 12 games as a rookie. Okay, we can live with that. He missed 5. Last year, he played 6 games and jacks his foot up. Now, he only had 15 catches last year, so the sample size was super small. So it's 19 yards per reception, and it's 98th percentile yards after the catch. Again, if there were more catches, that could have normalized and moved down, so we're not sure what to make of that. The one thing I want fantasy managers to know is this. We heard cortisone shot in late May, early June, and in myself included, we all freaked out. What happened, I found from a beat writer, is on the Joe Dolan Fantasy Points Franchise Focus podcast. That beat writer said the cortisone shot was not about the injury. There was discomfort from the screw that was in the foot. He has been back since practicing. So I think we are still getting a major league discount on Bateman. I believe he is their ex-lead receiver in that offense. Monken, they're going to throw more. I think he's a screaming value in the 10th round. Chris, either way, what do you think about Bateman?
Look, let's put it this way. Don't worry about screws. Okay, I can't emphasize this enough. Look, I am one that can attest that I have a screw in my ankle. It's not an issue. It doesn't affect mobility. It doesn't affect range. It doesn't affect anything like that. This all comes down to how his recovery has been. And so far, by all accounts, it's gone well. And when you have that, and you have the information that you have based on the fact that Baltimore is they're expected to throw more, they're expected to throw more down the field. That adds up. Look, that's a win for everybody in that offense. It opens things up, and finally, people in Baltimore can excel, and also fantasy owners can excel because, look, Baltimore had become so predictable that I could have just sat there and said, hey, the chances of them throwing down the field more than 20 or 30 yards was, well, zero.
I'm sure Greg Roman is a wonderful human being. I'm sure if I knew him, I would love him. But as a coach, I'm not going to miss him in Baltimore because I want to see that offense unlocked. So, like I said, I hope it's all going well for him. But in terms of this, I am excited to see Todd Monken right there. And all right. And next, JuJu Smith-Schuster. This is a player I've been out on most of his career. As his second year, he goes like 1,400 yards, goes crazy. And I said all along, look, he's got Antonio Brown out there. And Antonio Brown is drawing heavy coverage. JuJu lived on Ben's big arm, and it's kind of proven out to that point. But JuJu's in a great spot right now in New England. So in New England, Bill O'Brien comes in. They finally have a real coach coaching the offense. Bill O'Brien coached with Mac Jones. They ran an RPO-based system in Alabama, the university. And now JuJu Smith-Schuster, there is one thing he is really good at. He knows how to get open against zone defenses. And I believe the way New England's going to have to run their offense, they don't have a lot of explosive downfield area players. Devontae Parker, seriously, we'll see what he plays, but he really can't consistently do that. Tyquan Thornton doesn't seem to pan out, and he's hurt already. So I think we are going to see JuJu, who had an 86 percentile yards after the catch last year, which was really good. And we don't like the fact he only had 933 yards with Patrick Mahomes. But if you're looking for a PPR play in the 10th round, I do think JuJu Smith-Schuster catches at least 75 passes, a few less than last year, and he might get a lot more than that. He could be leaned on so heavily as a possession guy. We could see those receptions go in the 85 range. I just think he's a floor play. I don't think there's this vast ceiling, and for what he is, it's a safe play if that's what you need at your point of the draft. Chris, any words on JuJu?
Yeah, you're looking at basically a reception rate of probably 5 a game. That's what you're looking at as your baseline for JuJu. Now, here's the thing too. In 4 of his previous 6 seasons or so, give or take, health issues aside, catch rate 75%. 75%.
Massive.
I mean, it's not super outstanding, but at the same time, he doesn't drop the ball either.
Nope.
Usually when the ball is thrown his way, he catches it. And that's all you're going to ask for, and you're basically going to get from the New England offense. You're hoping teams like the Jets are a little bit less than the expectations, where maybe he can feast on the Jets, or the Jets get scared magically by ghosts of New England past, or maybe Buffalo has a bad day. These are the dumb things you're looking for in fantasy matchups, especially early in the season, because let's be honest, as somebody who went through the Scott Fish League last year and cried for the first half of it because I think I saw every injury known to man, I lamented the guys that were, let's put it this way, Jim, 8-2 and 9-1 after 2 weeks, and I was 1-9 because literally I had a better roster from top to bottom, and it didn't make a difference. So guys like JuJu are extremely valuable in leagues like that, and basically in your leagues for the 10th round and beyond.
Yes, and last thing I'll say, if you took volatile players in round 6, 7, and 8, you do want that floor guy at some point, because volatility, you're not going to hit on all those guys. And sometimes having that player who can at least help your roster, it's a stabilizing force. I saw Jed contributed comment up there about the screws, and he has them in his ankle. And again, issues with the ankle, but nothing to do with the screw, just like Chris said. Kenny Gainwell's next. And so my whole thing on Gainwell is, look, his 26th percentile broken tackle rate was horrible. 32nd percentile yards after contact, terrible. Even as a receiver, 25th percentile yards after catch. But he had very little regular season touches. He had 23 receptions, I believe. So it was very little work. And so he saw him in the playoffs. I don't think he's a great player. But here's what I think. We know Jalen Hurts is going to create space. I really believe they want to bubble wrap as much as they can Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift for the NFL playoffs. I believe every team wants to win the Super Bowl. They clearly can. If they have Penny and Swift healthy in January, they are going to be a bigger beast to deal with. So I think Gainwell could be a volume play as an emergency RB2, definitely a flex, but I think he's going to get enough touches in both the running and receiving game that he is going to be a contributor. I don't think he's an upside play in any case, but again, if you're scratching for running backs and you really punted the position, I do think he's going to get 10 to 14 touches in most weeks, and as a low RB2 or a flex, that's enough to get it done. Any thoughts on Kenny Gainwell, Chris?
Yeah, because he had really dipped well into the single digits at times late last year. And I mean, look, part of that was, look at their schedule. They played the Giants twice late in the season. We know there's that guy that like haunts the Giants. So you knew Gainwell wasn't going to get a lot of touches. If he gets 8 to 10 touches and I can draft him that late, I'm doing cartwheels. Because Philly has to find a way with this. What is it? 1, 2, 3. Well, it feels like 6-headed running back monster. That's at least what every defense says. But they can run the ball no matter who is running the ball. And again, Gainwell can catch the ball. He gets tackled right away.
Right.
But if he gets you 5 to 7 yards and he gets you like maybe 2 or 3 receptions every so often, it's a bonus. So you have to consider it that way as well.
So another play, look, he's washed, but he's going to have some value. Ezekiel Elliott, 3.8 yards per carry, worst of his career. And if you look at last year, as the season went on, he got worse. In the first 10 games, he hit 73 rushing yards, 5 of those games. And then in the last 7, he never touched 62. So it was one of those things when players age, you have more gas in the tank in the beginning of the season, but that gas runs out as you age. And it's not like he's old. He's not old, but he has had so many touches at the NFL level. It wears a man down. So for reference, 41st percentile broken tackle rate, 38th after contact. Zeke's always been better than that. Now, here's the thing. In New England, the thing that doesn't get talked about, Ramondre Stevenson only lost 2 fumbles in his 2 years, but he fumbled 4 times last year and twice as a rookie. Bill Belichick counts a fumble as a fumble. He doesn't care if it's recovered by the other team or not. He knows that's chance. If Stevenson's going to put the ball on the carpet, Elliott's going to see volume. And near the goal line, if you're going to be a fumbler, he definitely doesn't want those 6 points off the board. So I think Elliott's going to carve into goal line work. Again, he doesn't have a ceiling. But again, later in the draft, as a baseline floor play, emergency flex option or emergency RB2, he could have value. Chris, any thoughts on Zeke?
Yeah, something Ezekiel Elliott couldn't do, ironically, early in his career was hold on to the football. I think he had 12 fumbles in his first 3 seasons. And I remember the 3rd season, literally, there were people even then kind of going, do we really want him in Dallas? I mean, look, he had 6 fumbles. He had probably several drop passes that I can remember out of the backfield where, look, you had guys questioning his ability to just play a consistent 60 minutes.
Yes.
And now, ironically, his last 2 years in Dallas, has 450, 460 something carries. One fumble.
He fixed it. Tiki Barber style.
He fixed it. Now, he had a coach in the offseason, I think 2 years ago, that was helping him immensely. And the irony is, as he got slower, his ability to hold on to the football got better. So, if you're in New England and you're desperate, let's be honest, What shape is Elliott coming in? Maybe the even bigger question here. He's generally listed as about 225, 230. There's been some camps recently where he's come in at, well, he ate a few lasagnas. This year, it seems like he's in a little bit better shape. And again, it's stereotypical, but we can only go on so much information. It can't hurt to take a shot on him at this point. It really can't. This is his last shot in the NFL.
And he is a competitor, and that sometimes that means something. All right, if you're enjoying the show, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons. If you're on RotoWire, YouTube, it means a lot if you're able to do so. And next player we're going to get to here is Joshua Palmer. I had been out on him all preseason. Daniel Popper of The Athletic, he covers the Chargers, and he's very dialed in as a beat reporter. And his take is that Joshua Palmer is starting the season as the wide receiver 3 ahead of Quentin Johnston. Now, how long will it last? I don't know. But Joshua Palmer was not good after the catch, 31st percentile, so we'll definitely understand we're not talking about a superstar player. But I keep saying, what I expect Kellen Moore to do. Mike Williams is going to be used as a downfield element, and the purpose of it isn't just to throw deep. It's to stretch the defense out. Herbert's going to be coached that because Herbert doesn't like turning the ball over. If throwing the ball deep, there's a risk for that. Kellen Moore is trying to teach him that, look, I don't care if an occasional pass gets picked off. If the defense knows we are going to attack downfield, they have to loosen up the middle of the field. So players like Keenan Allen, who already is a superstar, Joshua Palmer, or Quentin Johnson, there is going to be more room for them to operate because the offense is predicated deep first, downfield next. It's like the opposite of the read progressions that were under Joe Lombardi. So that said, if Joshua Palmer is going to be the number 3 receiver, at least to start the season, he could hold that job. And if I'm playing with Justin Herbert as my quarterback, you're getting Palmer super, super, super late in the draft. Take a shot on him in whatever, the 18th round, the 17th round, if your draft goes that far. If he doesn't do anything in 2 weeks, you cut him and go to the waiver wire. These are the guys you want. You want to know if there's something right away. And if not, move on. Anything on Josh Palmer, Chris?
Yeah, he's a borderline fringe draft player at this point. And from what I've seen in training camp, it's pretty much been the same as we've seen for the first 2 years in beautiful, lovely, Southern California. I'm not going to lie, but Palmer, look, he has ability to get open. After that, it's kind of like I don't know. Doesn't see, and it's funny because last year they did this just a quick sense of humor thing. So he averaged 10.7 yards a catch his first year. He averaged exactly 10.7 yards a catch the second year. What's even more eerie is the fact that if you start looking at numbers, his success catch rate is the exact same for both seasons and 2 completely different style loads. It's really eerie to get that kind of consistency. And we don't necessarily mean this in a good or bad way, just in the right now, while you have him and while you have Sandy, you have a nice sandy, sunny sort of matchup profile. Why not?
Yes, exactly. Now, Jed asks us a question in half PPR. Would you rather have Trey Palmer over Josh Palmer? Well, here's the thing. The problem is center Ryan Jensen had maybe a career-ending knee injury. Donovan Smith, who wasn't very good in the left tackle, he's gone. I believe he's over in Kansas City. That line is going to be a major problem. Trey Palmer is about speed. And Baker Mayfield, other than throwing some up to Mike Evans, where you're just going to kind of chuck it up there and let Mike just win, I just don't think Baker Mayfield is going to be able to get much out of Trey Palmer because of the duress he's going to be under. Like I said, if you're under duress, you throw it to Mike Evans because he's Mike Evans. He's going to win. You just throw it up. And Godwin's going to be a beast in the middle of the field. And I think they're going to play more 2 receiver sets than 3. I think they're going to put extra tight end on the field to protect Mayfield. And so I think Palmer's going to see a real big snap squeeze. I would rather have Palmer in what's going to likely be a pass-heavy offense with a legendary quarterback. That's why I'd go. Do you have any disagreement with that, Chris?
No, not at all. What's more scary for Tampa Bay right now is the fact that you could make the case that Baker probably shouldn't even be starting. I get why they want the older quarterback. So basically, it's like the first line of defense. You want the guy to get trampled and run over before you trot your younger guy out there. It's that
Exactly.
simple.
Exactly. Yes. Oh my gosh. It could be very, very ugly there this year. Hey, the RotoWire Fantasy Football Draft Kit app is the up-to-the-minute cheat sheet and news source we all need when we're in the draft room, and a lot of us are drafting this weekend. If you're like me and you put players into tiers for your drafts, the app lets you do that too. So check out and see why the RotoWire Fantasy Football Draft Kit app is the #1 ranked paid sports app in the Apple Store, and you can use it this weekend in your drafts. We're going to do one more player, Chris, before we get to the betting angle that you'd like to give us today. I'm going to talk quickly about Trey McBride. If you're in a league where you've got its tight end premium, or if it's one of these leagues where you're doing a ton of rounds, Jed, thanks for the testimonial on the app. And so anyway, if you need multiple tight ends in your league, Trey McBride is a player to consider. Everybody's screaming about the rookies. The transition for rookies at this position, look at the history of the game. It rarely happens where a rookie tight end as much. Kyle Pitts was a wide receiver as a rookie, and he got 1,000 yards, so that worked out for him. But most of these other guys everybody's talking about, now Dalton Kincaid might be a slot receiver, so he might be okay. These other guys, Musgrave, Laporta, they're going to have to block some. And the transition to go from blocker to reading the defense to getting open, that's why tight ends struggle when they're young. Trey McBride, Zach Ertz is back. Zach Ertz is only 5th percentile yards after the catch. I love Zach Ertz, one of my favorite tight ends in a long time, other than the superstars like Gronk and Kittle. But Zach Ertz, he's not getting younger. He's into his 30s, off an ACL. Trey McBride ended the season well, at least 41 yards in 3 of the last 4 games. The quarterback play might be garbage, but Trey McBride in the middle of the field, they don't have big players there. You've got Marquise Brown, you've got Rondale Moore, you got Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson. I don't expect, I thought he was like a wide receiver 5 type, but they drafted him to be a starter, and he's going to be an outside guy anyway. The only big target in the middle of the field they have is Trey McBride. So if you are in a tight end premium league, you need a second or a third tight end, maybe even a best ball league. That's the only reason I'm telling you about Trey McBride. But for that reason, he may be a better option than some of the late round tight ends you're looking at. Chris, anything on that?
Yeah, here's the thing. Somebody's got to catch the ball there.
Yes.
And look, Ertz's recovery has been almost, you don't want to throw the M word out there, but it's pretty darn close. I mean, look, I had him written off. I was going to just take him in the fringe round, maybe 19, 20th round even in some of my really, really late drafts. I have one that's like 24, 25 rounds, and you just sit there and go like this, like, oh my God, what am I thinking? What is my process in round 24? As I'm 6 deep in a cider fest. But this is McBride is the type of guy that you take very late, and you put the laptop down and you just walk away.
Yeah, exactly. Runaway, maybe, but it works. Walk away, run away, all works. Hey, remember, everybody, for this show on Monday and Tuesday with Labor Day tomorrow, we're going to be off, but we're doing a last day before the season marathon with 50 fantasy football experts. That's Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. If you want details on that marathon, details are on my Twitter at Jim Coventry NFL. Chris, the fantasy analysis was outstanding, as it always is. You also are an amazing gambling expert, and I know a lot of people are itching to make some bets here. And so as we get into this preseason, the big hot topic with a lot of people is the Lions. They went on a run at the end of last season. Everybody is super excited. They spend high draft picks on Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs. What do you think about the Lions making the playoffs?
So for people that don't know, and I still can't believe this. This is a team that went 0-16 a few years ago, if we remember, and have ways to underperform that we still don't understand in the sports betting community, or sports community for that matter. All right, so right now you go through the NFC North futures. Let's just take DraftKings as just a baseline example. The Lions are still favored to win the division on September 3rd. I know this is still shocking to people. I understand that you put your mimosa down or your Sunday brunch because let's face it, it's Labor Day weekend. You didn't think this through maybe, but they're still plus 140 to win the division. Now, the simpler question is always, oh, how about, hey, what happens if they go to make the playoffs? This is where you go into wow territory. The Detroit Lions right now, ladies and gentlemen, are a minus 165, not quite lock, but darn well up there to make the playoffs. Put this in perspective, the Green Bay Packers, as an inverse, are plus 165. Let that sink in. Lions, Packers. Lions, Packers. Never mind who is quarterbacking for the Lions. Although, to be fair, Jared Goff did have a better second half last year. So you have to consider that too. You have to consider what's coming in. And then you, of course, have to look at the division and go, oh, is this trip really necessary? They actually, Jim, have more value still to win the division than to bet on them to make the playoffs. It's crazy. But early on in the season, if you're going to take a shot, don't look at the Super Bowl number. Don't look at the Super Bowl number. Don't look at the team specials right now. Don't look at even the conference number. And people ask, well, why don't you look at the conference number? The conference number, ironically, might scare off people even more. They're fourth in the conference right now at plus 1,100. Some places they're as low as plus 950. That's a scary territory. So if you're looking for any value from Detroit, you're taking the shot that they're going to somehow win this division at plus 140. Look, if I look around, I can get a 150 or a 160 in a couple places right now in Vegas. So that's where you go. Don't go to make the playoffs, because then you're just going to sit there and you're going to take your 60% something chances to make the playoffs, and you're going to burn it into it if you lose.
I love that angle on that, and it's a very, very smart bet to make. And just the Lions as a team, the one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot, everybody talks about the offensive ads. They added 3 cornerbacks to their roster. They're not world beaters, but they're all decent. They didn't have decent last year. And so just and Aiden Hutchinson is a pass rusher, progress in the second half of the season. There's going to be a little more. James Houston was good as a rusher. This is a team that's emerging. But that bet is the best one. So follow Chris Wassell's advice. If you're going to bet the Lions to win the NFC North, way to go there. Now, Chris, over in the NFC East, last year, Brian Daboll did wonders with the Giants. People had them written off as a team that was maybe a 5-win team at best. Well, didn't happen. They make the playoffs. How are you handicapping the Giants this year?
Giants are the roughest team to handicap because their schedule is among the toughest. Now, Pro Football Focus had them third. There's a couple other publications. I think SI.com had them first. RotoWire was right in that first to third range. It just depends on the early season schedule. It's rough. It's brutal. The Giants are not going to sneak up on anybody. And oh, by the way, Jim, they went 3-7 over their last 10 games, even with a much improved roster. Now, talent-wise, they've upgraded this year, obviously. Mm-hmm. But their offensive line still has some questions, and there's that little nagging concussion to a certain right tackle that has us all in New York going, and in New Jersey too, going, oh God, we're in trouble. Or as the old Ralphie from The Simpsons, we're in danger. Over and over. So that's one red flag. The second is, how do teams handle Darren Waller? This is the key. He is probably the most vital part to that team's fortunes this year. Daniel Jones finally has a tight end that he can throw to, where if he throws it 10 yards high, Waller will catch it. Look, it's known. It's not something that is unknown in circles in the NFL. That look, Daniel Jones is a good quarterback. Is he a very good quarterback? No. I'm unequivocally saying it. If he wants to prove me wrong, go ahead. But I've seen too much, even in training camp this year, to suggest that anything otherwise. However, good can still get you in the playoffs. The Giants, unfortunately, have a landmine of a schedule, and everybody knows it. So this could be a better team that wins, ironically, 9 games like last year and doesn't make the playoffs. And that's where you have to look at. There's not a lot of value with the Giants, unfortunately. Jim, they were about plus 700 to win the division at the start of maybe May or June, and it keeps slowly inching out. It was 900 last week, so there's not much value there, and they're kind of they're pigeonholed. So DraftKings is nice enough, and I do mean nice enough. The over at 7.5 right now is dead solid even.
Really?
Yes. They play teams like Arizona. They play some really bad teams along the way. I think if the weather conditions are right, they can cause fits to Philly at least once. Philly might have everything clinched by then.
Yes.
Like last year. Everybody remembers that the Giants beat that plus 7.5 spread. Barely. But they did. That's the important thing. And that's how you have to look at the Giants. They don't have a conventional value, but if I want to go risk, so 7.5 is plus 100. I wish I could show everybody this. 8.5. Oh boy, if you want to go ballsy, ladies and gentlemen, 180. That's a big jump. It's one of the bigger jumps among NFC teams right now. Is just that one win. They could get to 9.
Yes.
They could get to 9. 9 and 8 is not a huge ask for this team.
Nope.
Solid bet. It might seem like it when your 2023 winning percentage of teams faced is around 550. It was 549.4. I mean, come on, I don't get into tens of thousands like most other people, and yet I'm a math person. But the bottom line is they do have some value. I like guys like Waller, especially for their yardage props. I heavily do not recommend taking any Saquon Barkley yardage props yet until you see what he does week 1 against, let's face it, tougher opposition. Because this training camp and preseason so far, Jim, at least from a Giants standpoint, they have played kid gloves with a lot of their star players, and for good reason. You have Sterling Shepard, who's just coming back. I mean, he might play week 1. He might not. You have the Robinsons Wan'Dale Robinson is ahead of schedule. But again, if I'm the Giants, am I really risking him week 1? No.
I wouldn't.
So you have that. You have some of the offensive line red flags. Don't worry about week 1. Worry about late in the season with this thing. Exactly. I think they're actually going to kind of flip things around and do better in the second half from about, say, week 8 or 9, once they get through that Buffalo-Miami block and start to play better then.
Chris, I love the breakdown. I see Kathleen's in the house. Thank you for the wonderful comment. Excited to know you're going to be at watching the marathon on Wednesday. Now, Chris, tell everybody what you've got going on so people can keep up with you and follow your work.
Okay, so Empire Stakes Media, which is where we're going to be updating the New York Giants playoff and Super Bowl chances all season long. It's one of the crazier, more comprehensive looking articles out there. Trust me, it's 4,000 words. I would know. The key is we will be updating this with numbers and stats throughout the season, but it will give you an idea of not only what we're doing over at gambling.com, but what some of the great writers will be doing. Marcus Mosher will be doing the Dallas version. And anybody knows Marcus, you know what you're getting. So again, updated numbers. We'll be going through on Twitter some of the futures every week this season to see if there's anything of value that we can find. Because look, let's be honest, even the futures market in NFL betting is rather saturated. You have to get a little creative and go outside the box. And these sites, thanks again to gambling.com, are a huge boon for the bettors who look, they're not looking to bet crazy $1, $2, $5, $1,000 bets. They're looking at a few dollars here and a few dollars there. Hey, where can I put a little bit of extra money here? And that's what we're going to do for them.
So that's Chris Wassel when he comes on the show here. Chris, thanks for talking football with me today. Thanks to everyone for joining us. Please join us again Wednesday. We'll be off for the holiday and the Tuesday, but Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern, the Fantasy Football Marathon. Over 50 analysts will be on. That'll go until 5 Eastern. You're going to enjoy it on RotoWire. YouTube's where you find it. Have a great day, everyone. Happy Labor Day.